I would be thinking about you as I was recovering.
Yeah, that's what I, that's
on game controllers. Here, there's app library and widgets on your home screen.
What are some other common misconceptions you see people talk about when it comes to diets? Because I know there's like a bunch of different diet trends out there, like a KO diet, as you pointed to earlier. What are some other misconceptions that you hear people talk about when it comes to certain diets and certain foods?
Carbs and you might have to edit that out. Sorry, Kendall.
You good?
Carbohydrates and protein are probably some of the biggest ones that I see most repeatedly. And so I think you touched on probably one of the biggest, most prevailing ones right now. But I don't know. I see other things where people are trying to avoid things or take out things that they don't necessarily need to within their diet. So one example that I guess I would give is like people try and maybe eliminate all sugar. And I would say that sugar is part of the problem here in America. We tend to consume too much sugar. And so I think the basis for doing something like that is, okay, we recognize there's a problem with things like obesity, things like metabolic disturbance and the metabolic syndrome, for example, that can lead to a lot of other chronic health conditions. And so they're like, okay, let's get rid of all sugar. What they don't realize is that by eliminating certain foods, maybe it's sugar, maybe it's something else. A lot of times those foods that we eliminate tend to have more power on us than we think they do. And the very act of eliminating them is likely to make us crave them more. I'll give a personal example here. I've never craved a lot of meat. I do consume meat. I'm not a vegan. I'm not a vegetarian by any means. And I, for 30 days, gave up all meat. And I thought it'd be easy for me because I a lot of times don't miss or recognize when there isn't meat on my plate, because I do tend to have like more grains and vegetables and things of that nature in my meals, and I don't miss it in the same way that my friends do. But the moment I took out meat from my diet, and doing it for 30 days was a whole lot harder than I thought it would be, and I was just kind of experimenting for a bit of time, I craved meat a whole lot more than I ever did because I knew I was eliminating it. And so people will try to go on these certain diets. Maybe it's eliminating sugar. I think that's a common one. I mentioned eliminating meats. People certainly choose that as a lifestyle long term when we're talking about vegetarians and vegans. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't do that. I'm giving a personal example of my own experience. But I think sometimes what people don't realize is those foods that we eliminate are likely to be something that we binge with later on. So if I tell myself I can't have a cookie from now until this time next year, I'm going to eliminate cookies for the next year of my life, I'm probably going to crave cookies a whole lot more than I did if I hadn't told myself that. And so I think that we need to encourage more like moderation, and how can I incorporate a cookie or red meat or white bread or things that I enjoy that might not be the most nutrient dense kind of foods. How can I incorporate them in a more balanced diet in a way that I'm not trying to eliminate them? So that would be a common sort of dieting strategy, is, you know, eliminating certain foods or like taking certain things out that we view as the enemy. And we just don't realize that that can have the opposite effect. And a lot of times when we go back to whatever style of eating or whatever thing that we eliminated, we end up gaining more weight than we weighed when we started the diet plan. And so I'd say that that's a common thing that I see. And in general, I think moderation is better than just like trying to eliminate even something like sugar or like a whole food group like carbohydrates. It can make our body, even carbohydrates, our body can become more sensitive to carbohydrates when we eliminate them. And so we have more adverse reactions when we incorporate them back in a sense too. So I don't know if you were thinking of any other dieting strategies. That's one of the ones that comes to my mind right off the bat.
Oh no, you made a great point, and actually can lead into another question. Because one thing I wanted to touch on was like eating in moderation, as you said, and like I know, like for me personally, like when I go on my workouts and stuff, I'll like limit myself to having like one sweet per week, or I won't eat like a cheat meal till like the end of the week or when I'm done working out, and that's like a misconception. You know how people get to this, like they don't understand because they think, oh, if I'm working out and staying shape, I must completely cut this food out of my diet, but
Hmm.
eating in moderation it's still good because, like you said, your body will get used to it. And if you completely cut it out of your diet, then you go back and eat it once, and you completely change your whole entire way because you'll start binge eating and eating that food more and more often. And like for example, like The Rock, for example, we all know him to be this big muscular guy, but he'll post on his Instagram on Sundays eating these big hearty cheat meals. It'd be like big French toast with double peanut butter and like tequila on. Like it's good to eat in moderation, and people don't know that. And one thing I wanted to touch on, you kind of answered it already, was is it good to have a cheat meal every once in a while? Because some people, like I said, some people will say, "Oh, I need to cut this completely out of the diet. There's no need for me to eat no more cookies. I should eat no more brownies because I had a brownie last night. I should eat no more candy, like none of that." But it's okay to have a cheat meal, and is that correct?
Well, Kendall, I had ice cream last night, so I didn't have a lot, but I
Right.
did have like a little bit of ice cream, right?
It
So
was a small brownie. It
I
was a small brownie.
yeah, no judgment here from me. I'm not. My friends sometimes have this perception that I'm gonna like slap them on the hand when they start eating their brownie, and I'm like, oh, what do you? You know, I also enjoy sweets, right? So personally, I would advocate for less of like a cheat meal mentality. And for example, like, okay, I love chocolate.
Okay.
If I view that as sort of like my cheat indulgence, although you're thinking more of a meal and I guess I'm thinking more of a dessert. So maybe I should come up with a better example. Um, Mac and cheese. I do love mac and cheese, okay?
I love that
Not
too.
our healthiest choice out there, right? My mom
Right.
makes a mean homemade mac and cheese since I was a kid that I absolutely love.
So
One
does
of my
mine. Shout
favorite
out to
comfort
moms.
foods. Yeah, I mean, like not we're not just talking like microwavable or from like macaroni
Kraft
grill or
mac and
something. We're
cheese.
talking about
Nah.
mom's homemade mac and cheese, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I love it. And when mom makes it, I consume it.
Right.
And I would advocate for it. Like, so if I have one cheat meal per day and maybe I've already done my cheat meal and mom made that, I would be like, well, I already had my one cheat meal of the day, so I can't enjoy that with my family.
Right.
I don't like that sort of mentality, but I do watch, for example, my portions and the other things that I'm consuming. And maybe if I'm having something that is more indulgent, and so mac and cheese, heavy on the carbs, heavy also on the fat. There's a little bit of protein in there, but it's certainly heavier on the carbs and the fat.
Definitely.
And so, right. So like, I want to think about getting more vegetables, and maybe that meal is not my meal where I get more vegetables in. So I am thinking about the other things that I'm eating throughout the day, or maybe the next day, if we're talking about a dinner meal, like I don't have time to like go and recreate the things that I already did. And so I don't think it's worth like totally eliminating anything. I think it's just how we fit things into the overall picture of what we're consuming. Now that can be really hard for people because it's like, okay, yeah, well, I'm gonna have mac and cheese tonight, and then I have the opportunity for like donuts in the morning, and then I have the opportunity for pizza with my coworkers at work. And so I think some people might require a little bit more structure where maybe they do think about when can I eat certain things, and maybe it's not as loose as mine is, where I do generally allow myself to partake in certain meals with friends, but I'm thinking about the other things I'm eating around it, and I am eating relatively healthy otherwise, so that when those opportunities do present, I don't feel like I'm like totally upending everything.
Yeah. And
So
go ahead.
yeah, go ahead, Kendall.
I was gonna say, as that touches on a good point, as I say, like just knowing one's body, because not everybody can consume and eat the same portions or eat the same thing as anybody else can. Cause I know some people will look at somebody and be like, oh, well, she eats this, so I can't eat this, or he eats that, so I should eat like him. Like people's bodies are different, and people should understand one's body to understand what they can eat at certain times of the day, or like what they should stay away from, or what they should eat more of. 'Cause I think a lot of people like they'll just look at certain people all the time and compare their diets to theirs and try to get to they see somebody's body and say, well, I want that type of body, so I must eat what they eat. But everybody's bodies is different. Like you can like we said, you had ice cream last night and I had a brownie last night, but it doesn't mean like I can consume a brownie all the time. Cause maybe somebody they can consume a brownie all the time, they can still be fine. Like I have a friend who eats junk food and eats unhealthy, but you look at him, he's diesel, he's like in shape and everything, but as he have different types of body, he has different type of metabolism. I think a lot of people don't understand it sometimes.
Yeah. Kendall, we all have that friend who can eat whatever they want and still look really good, whether
Jealous.
that's being really thin or still
jealous.
really fit. I think we all have that friend, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've got more than one of them, and I'm like, come on.
Right.
So, yeah, definitely. Everybody's body is different, and how we respond to certain things. People have different food sensitivities. I've mentioned carbohydrates, but some people eliminate carbohydrates because of allergies or food sensitivities that they might have, and there might be reason to consider eliminating different things. And I do want to make clear that I wasn't talking about it for those specific individuals. There might be reason to eliminate certain things, but some of us are more sensitive to carbs. Some of us are more sensitive to acidic foods. Some of us are more sensitive to the chemicals in different foods, and how our bodies respond to those chemicals and things could lead to different responses than the next person. They think that in some people, saturated fats, cholesterol might be more important than in other individuals as far as like cardiovascular health is concerned down the road. So I think you're asking your question thinking mainly of like how we'll respond as far as like general fitness or whether or not we gain weight and things of that nature. But there is a highly individualized response and how we think about different foods. And I would say we definitely need to learn our bodies. But then I also think we need to find foods that work for us, because if we try and eat Joe Schmo's diet plan and we hate all that food, I hate protein shakes. If you tried to get me to consume protein shakes, I would be off the bandwagon from whatever dieting plan you created by tomorrow. Like I'm done by tomorrow. I hate protein shakes.
You hate it that much.
Yeah, they're disgusting. in my opinion, right? So like some people that I know really love them, and they find the ones that are like chocolate vanilla milkshake extreme or whatever it might be. And I'm like, it still tastes like a protein shake to me. I have no desire. Like I'd rather consume foods that I enjoy and enjoy the process of eating. Yep. And I think that's important too, enjoying the things that we eat and finding things that work within that system of whatever our goals might be. And that takes trial and error.
It does take a lot of trial and error. And to that point is to each his own. Like everybody likes the same thing, where in your case, you do not like protein shakes. Some people might like protein shakes.